You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, new treatment options for people with hearing loss. And so there's two main categories we're going to discuss today. New technology for people that aren't getting the most out of their current hearing aids, and also for what's out there and what's available for people that are just starting to get hearing loss. With us, we have a doctor of audiology, Dr. Enoch Cox. Dr. Cox, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, before we get into today's topic, for people that don't know My Hearing Centers, who's your typical patient or client, and what are the different services you offer?
Great question. So we don't exactly have a typical patient or client. We have a lot of people who come to us who have worn hearing aids for years and just haven't been doing as well as they'd like. I love seeing those people because changing their lives is incredible.
Okay.
We also have people who have never used hearing aids before. There are millions of them, by the way, and they're just trying to think, do I have a problem? Is it time to get started? And is my wife right? Do I need to go get checked, right?
Okay. Now, with your centers, and I guess you have centers spread across the U.S., is that right?
Yep.
That you give, like minimum, a 30-day trial.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
So when it comes to hearing aids and hearing loss, it can be very tricky and challenging for people, and it can be very, I guess, nerve-wracking. People don't really want to wear hearing aids because they think that they're going to be admitting that they're old or that there's a problem with them. But what they don't realize is hearing aids are life-changing. Okay. And what we want to do is remove as many barriers as possible. And so we don't want you to just wear it in the office. We don't want you to just wear it over the weekend. We want you to actually have some time, several weeks, to really change your life and really notice the difference. And if you don't notice the difference, bring it back.
You get their money back.
Absolutely, every penny.
So they could just try, like, test drive a hearing aid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and just about everybody says, I love it.
You know, I've got a patient, right?
Okay.
He had been to several different hearing centers over the last 20 years, and time again left frustrated, irritated, lost a fair amount of money that way. And when he came in to see me, he says, this is my last shot. My wife tells me I had to come in and see you, but if you can't help me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Long story short, several hours later, he's crying in my office. He says, I've never been able to hear like this before. Please tell me that this is going to go home with me. So He takes it home, and I practice in Utah, right?
Yeah.
And the next week, he goes on a road trip with his wife, comes to California, comes back, and as they're pulling into the driveway, he looks at his wife and says, did you notice I never asked you to repeat the whole trip? And she says, yeah, this is the best car trip we've had in 20 years. He came back in my office, he's telling me about it, crying, and I love it because the hearing aids he was using, they have a special feature that actually, the microphones in them, they turn and shift in the direction where the speech is coming from.
Really?
And so his wife, who's sitting to the side of him, he's able to hear really well without all the extra car noise. And a lot of people who wear hearing aids, like he had tried before, they just get no help in the car. But with him, he was able to make that several
So it's
day
like
trip.
directional.
Oh yeah, extremely directional. It's automatic, and there's an app on your phone where you can even do it manually. You can say, you know what, I want to hear what's behind me. I want to hear what's this side, that side, whatever you want.
Is that right? So you could actually tune out with an app, background noise, side noise.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is why we have hearing aids now that we can actually say can help somebody with a moderate hearing loss hear even better than somebody like me that has normal hearing.
So are there a lot of people? Are there numbers on how many people are wearing hearing aids or how many people need them?
Yes.
How big of a problem is what I'm saying?
It's actually the third biggest medical problem in the United States, beaten only by arthritis and heart disease. And so it's estimated that the number of people who have hearing loss in the United States is almost 50 million. So if you take the population of California, Utah, Arizona, combine them all together, that's roughly how many people have hearing loss in the United States. And unfortunately, only about 20% ever seek any kind of help for it. So there's an awful lot of people, more than the entire state of California, that are walking around not doing nearly as much as they could and not engaged with their peers and family members nearly as much as they could be.
Okay, good. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on the show, we've talked on the telephone, and that is that there's a lot of people currently with hearing aids, but they're not getting the most out of their hearing aids. What does that mean?
So there are a couple of manufacturers that are huge, and they've done lots of studies, and overall they find that roughly 80% of all hearing aids are fit and programmed incorrectly, which means if you currently wear a hearing aid, there's a very good chance that it's just not doing what it should be for you. Okay. And so a lot of people, and a lot of people have heard this, they go around feeling like, my hearing aids help me in a quiet place, but when there's background noise, it's awful. The noise is just so loud. And that's why these new hearing aids are so good. In fact, I had a patient, he'd been wearing hearing aids forever, right? And we tried these new incredible, they're the Activus hearing aids, I love them. And after we'd been working for a few weeks, he goes on a cruise with his wife, and they're at the table with a bunch of people, and he is loving it, he's doing great. He comes back into my office, and I said, so, how was the cruise? He said, I could not wait to come back and talk to you. I was the only person at the table that didn't ask anybody else to repeat. It was incredible. I love these hearing aids. So to put this in perspective, this particular client, he had done so poorly, even at the dinner table at home, that he was very nervous about going on this cruise. And had he not had these new hearing aids, had he been straddled with the ones he had before, it would have been disastrous. He would have probably gotten a private table and just he and his wife go together and then leave as soon as possible to get out of the noise. But instead, he was able to really participate and be with lots of other people and make some really good memories.
So a lot of these people with bad hearing loss, they just avoid social situations where
Yes.
there's like multiple people talking.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that what they're telling you?
Absolutely. And it's actually estimated that most people who have adverse health effects from hearing loss is because of that very thing, because they do withdraw from social situations. It's very disheartening to walk into a place and not know what's going on. And so you have a couple of options. Option number one, talk nonstop, dominate the conversation.
They do that?
Yeah, absolutely they do that.
Okay.
Or they pull way back and they just kind of smile and nod and sometimes laugh and they hope it's at the right time. But I had a patient.
Okay.
I had a client one time. They came in to see me because they finally had an experience that they had to do something about. So this couple they're laying in bed, it's late at night, and the woman leans over and she says, sweetheart, I gotta tell you, I need the air on. And he jumps out of bed and he says, and you waited to the middle of the night to tell me? And she looks confused and he looks at her and says, you're having an affair? No, I need the air on. And so
So they told you this story.
yeah,
It's a funny story.
That was why they came in, but there are people doing that all the time. And so
they just miss what's being said.
all the time, which is why they withdraw from the conversation, because they're confident if they're missing that at home in quiet places, when they're around other people and there's background noise and stuff, they're going to be missing a lot, and they don't want to look foolish, and they finally stop going and doing the things that they love because it's just not worth it. It's too hard.
So if there are, as you mentioned, like 30 to 50 million people with hearing loss to the point where they need something,
Right.
A device, why aren't they all doing it? Let's focus, because I know there's two types of people. There's the people with current hearing aids that aren't wearing them or not getting the most out of them. But let's talk about the people that are doing nothing right now.
Right.
So if it's such a big deal, why aren't they doing it? They
You
just
know-
don't like the idea of hearing aids, makes them look old. I mean, what is it? What do you hear?
A lot of things. I had one client, his insurance was covering his hearing aids completely. He lived in a nursing home. He comes in, I test his hearing, I say, well, good news, bad news. Good news is your insurance is going to cover your hearing aids completely. Bad news is you need hearing aids, but you already knew that, so it's not a big deal, right? And the guy, he struggled to walk into me, old, and he looks at me and he says, does that mean I'm old? And I almost started laughing, and then I realized he wasn't kidding. And I thought, this is really sad that somebody thinks that using a hearing aid makes them be old, because it doesn't. I have clients all ages and different occupations, and I tell you what, there's nothing more invigorating to your social life than being able to actually interact with people instead of hanging back in the wings and really looking like the old guy in the room. When you're able to participate and you can really join in the joke, you're not old anymore. You've got a new vitality to you, which is what this particular guy was missing, and which, fortunately, we were able to bring back to his life.
Now, many centers, in fact, many of the discount centers, offer a few options. I asked you, well, there's many hearing aid manufacturers. Which ones do you carry? And your response is all of them.
Right.
Is that right?
Absolutely. You know, we would.
And why is that important to go to a center, and you have centers across the U.S. Why is it important to go to a center that has all of them?
Well, I guess I could ask, what kind of car do you drive, right?
All right, okay.
So did you find that car because you went to the Pinto lot or the Ford lot? I mean, how did you know what car you wanted? You were able to do some research.
Like an auto mall these days. There's lots of selection or whatever.
Now, what people don't really realize is when they go into a regular hearing center, they're usually owned or affiliated with a specific manufacturer. And without even knowing it, they're going in for one brand and that's it. And then they leave with whatever the best is, but the best is only of that particular brand. And so I see people all the time that say, yep, I've got hearing aids. They're the best that there is. I say, really? Well, why don't we do a quick test? And we test them and they say, how are you able to help me better than what these are? These are the best. I say, well, they're the best of that brand, but what you need is this other brand because it has these other features that this one just flat doesn't have. Well, why didn't they tell me about that?
Is that a common occurrence in your practice?
All the time, at least a couple of times a month.
So it takes judgment on your part in these centers to connect people with the right hearing aid.
Absolutely, which is why, I mean, we have over 100 centers across the United States, and I have personally met almost every single one of our providers, and they are incredible. So we have literally looked for and found the best of the best, and that's who we have working at my hearing centers, and they're able to do incredible testing beyond what is required by law because we want better outcomes. Earlier we talked about how 80% of all hearing aids are done incorrectly. That's horrible. We don't want a part of that. We want every one of our patients to have the best outcomes possible, so we use the best professionals and the best technology for whatever is going to meet your needs.
Now, what about somebody watching this? They currently have a hearing aid and they're saying it's pretty good. I mean, I got problems in noisy environments, whatever. They're hearing what you have to say because you have this tryout period.
Right.
Even if they have a current
Even if you have a current hearing aid,
they can come in,
absolutely,
try it out for a little while.
Absolutely.
If it's not better than what they have now, they pay nothing.
Absolutely. Yep. So,
do people do that? Or would you like to see more of it?
So, I love it when that happens.
Because you call it a challenge or something.
We do. We have our challenge, and that is put it to the test. And pardon the expression, but we put our money where our mouth is, right?
Okay.
If you don't like it, if it's not changing your life, you end up paying nothing. Right? You get to use these hearing aids for many weeks before you make your final decision, and we get to make sure that we've helped you improve your hearing and your life so much that if it's not what you think, you back out, and it's okay. We part friends, and you're out nothing.
So, backing up earlier, you say that oftentimes the partner, the spouse, drags them in, that the people that have hearing loss are in denial. In a way. I'm paraphrasing you slightly.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I mean, we often get calls from family members that say, I need to set an appointment for my husband or my wife or my mother or father.
Are men the worst, by the way, because we put things off?
You know, statistically that is the case, and men are a little bit more vain than women. I mean, we feel like we can muscle through anything, and so we put it off and we put it off. And unfortunately, what we're doing is we're expecting everybody else to pick up the slack. And we figure, you know what? If it's only bothering me, I can ask everybody else to repeat 1,000,000 times.
So it's bothering the family.
All the time. I've got one client that before he even ever came in, his daughter came in and said, my dad is not doing well with his hearing aids. He lives back and forth between Florida and Utah. He's going to be here in a few weeks. What can we do? Said, let's bring him in. Let's take the challenge. We'll do an exam at absolutely no cost.
Which is a tryout of the hearing aids.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll do an exam at no cost, and you get to try whatever hearing aid is right for you, completely risk-free. And he came in, and she was telling me about all the stuff that was happening at the family, right? That everybody, you couldn't hardly talk to him on the phone. In person, even at the dinner table, he was clanking his silverware on his plate, and it was just so challenging having him around. They loved him, but he was so hard to communicate with, and he didn't want to do much about it. And so When they came in, we got him some new hearing aids, and 2 weeks later, his daughter comes back in and says, so I have to tell you, we were at dinner the other day, he was at my house, and he says, sweetheart, there's something wrong with your plates. Your plates are really noisy. At home, I never have this problem, but they're clinking and clanking. And she says, Dad, we've been telling you for years, you gotta get some hearing aids. And now that you have them, you're just hearing the things that you've been missing. And she came in, she was almost in tears, just saying, you know what? I felt like I finally had my dad back. He'd been gone for almost 20 years, and now he's back. I hear this every day, and everybody comes back and they say, my life is back, my spouse is back, my dad is back, and that is what makes this job so fun.
And now it's interesting you say that many people, they're assertive. Can you repeat that? But people that aren't assertive, they're just missing out on conversations. Is
Absolutely.
that right?
We talked about how only 15% of people with hearing loss do something about it. That means there's an awful lot, millions of people who are just trying to fake it, who are struggling through day to day and not getting the most out of life that they could.
But that's your challenge, right? I mean, that's why you do programs like this, because
Absolutely.
people don't know how good it could be.
Correct.
And because you lose your hearing, I mean, you help me understand this, that because you lose your hearing so slow over time, you don't even realize how bad it is.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Even people who come in with a mild hearing loss, if they were to have just lost it, snap like that, they would have been in the next day.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, what happened? My average patient has more hearing loss than I would have if I stuck earplugs in my ears. And they usually come in saying, I don't even think I have a problem. But it's more than earplugs.
But the spouse is saying, you have a problem.
Oftentimes, yeah. Yep. Unless the spouse also has hearing loss.
Interesting. So that happens too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want you to take me through the process, what they could expect at one of your centers on day one. You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. We'll be right back.
Well, I'm a heavy construction worker, union pipe fitter, and I couldn't even hear backup alarms on emergency vehicles. It was one of the reasons I took my disability, because I couldn't even hear alarms. I went to 3 places altogether, and I decided that my hearing center was the one that suited me the best. It's been beneficial to my wife and the rest of my family, because I don't say huh all the time when they ask me something. But when my granddaughter took my hand, took me outside, and asked me if I could hear the crickets, and I said yes, and I haven't heard them for probably 30 years. She smiled greater than I did. Yes, they beneficial because I like the different programs they have, because I can hear music a lot better, and I like it where I can turn it down, the different functions they have. It makes it very practical for me. My hearing center has increased and improved the quality of my life.
The job that I had for years, I didn't wear any hearing protection. And I was using impact wrenches and drills and whatnot. And so I knew I had lost some hearing. And it had gotten to the point over the past several years where I had to have the TV up way loud. People would talk. I had to have them repeat things. And so I just said to my wife, fine, I've got to do something, because I'm missing out on a lot of stuff. And so I had a friend that I knew he had hearing aids, and I said, where did you get them from? And he says, my hearing center. So I came, and they took care of me. I don't have to have the television up so loud. I can be part of a conversation without having to say, what was that? And ask them to speak a little louder, or get them to look at me when they talk. It's been much better. The thing I remember the most, the first night I had them, I was taking the garbage out, and I had a pair of leather-soled shoes on. And as I was walking, I could hear the sand crunching under my feet. Hadn't heard that in years and years. I have a granddaughter that's a swimmer, and we went to a swim meet, and I could understand what they were announcing, and even though it was in a loud environment and kind of noisy and whatnot, I could hear what they were what they were saying. It was a lot more enjoyable. My hearing centers have changed my life.
You're watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, new treatment options for people with hearing loss. The next generation of hearing aids are better than ever, according to my first guest. He is Dr. Enoch Cox. Dr. Cox, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back, I should say.
Yeah.
Now, for people that want to go in. Take me through that process. Like what happens on day one? They come in, what happens?
That's a great question. So you come in and you'll be greeted by our friendly staff, and then we're going to do a hearing test that's typically unlike anything you've had before.
Why is that?
Usually, and the standard across the industry is we do a beep test, right? Where it's hear the beep, raise your hand or say yes, and as we try to find what you can and can't hear. But the problem is nobody walks into our office because they don't hear beeps, right? People come in because they have lost communication, and speech is difficult to understand. So if we're only testing beeps, we are missing the boat. And so we also use speech, and when we can, we love it when somebody can bring a familiar voice, a family member with them, because then we can use their voice to make sure that they're getting everything that they should be getting, and then we're able to find what hearing aids would work right for them.
So rather than just the standard beep test, the partner, the spouse, whatever, is part of this test.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they've been part of the problem for a long time. Now let's make them part of the solution, right?
Okay.
Where if we're not looking for what we want to fix, how do we know we're going to fix it? Otherwise, it's
So the beep alone is not good enough,
No.
in your opinion?
Absolutely not, because then it's just a gamble whether or not we're going to get something that's going to help you properly. What we really need to find out is, can we make speech more understandable for you? I can find that you have hearing loss. I can find that you have more hearing loss than you had last time, but that tells me nothing about whether or not your hearing aid is adequate or whether XYZ hearing aid would be an improvement for you.
So that's the biggest mistake, would you say, in the industry?
Well, that's a
Is
huge
only
mistake.
doing the beeps, the tones, high, low, whatever?
Huge mistake in the industry, absolutely.
Okay.
And so
Makes sense.
by the end of the time, by the end of our appointment, it'll be crystal clear what we can do for you, and you'll know what hearing aids and.
But they actually get to try something on beforehand to hear the new way of hearing, or no?
Yes, so a lot of it depends on which providers you're working with.
Okay.
Some of them, with every provider, you will have an experience before you leave of better hearing, right?
Okay.
But sometimes your hearing loss is such where we need to build a custom product for you, and so we have to get that built before you can try it. But for everybody that comes in and we find that we can help them, and our testing shows that it'll be a good match to use hearing aids, every single person will be able to use hearing aids completely risk-free to see if it'll change their life.
So everybody gets this challenge of a money-back guarantee.
Absolutely.
Try them out, walk around, go to church,
Yes.
go to dinner.
Yeah.
If it's not everything you said it was, they get their money back.
Absolutely. In fact, we have a special offer for you in your area right now. So try the hearing aids and even participate in our special offer.
So if everything works out right in one of your centers, how soon can they have their hearing aids?
Immediately.
They can walk out with them that day.
They can walk out with them that day.
Okay.
Obviously, it doesn't happen every time because everybody's a little bit different, but I have many patients who have come in hoping they could get some help and they leave life changed.
Is this one of those things where maybe the husband gets it and then the wife gets it later?
That definitely does happen. Fortunately, it's not super common that both have enough of an issue to do something about, but yes, that does happen.
Now, what about insurance? Do you take insurance, and does it cover any of this?
Absolutely. So we work with most major insurances, and when you come in, we try to really find out what your situation is, and so we can milk your insurance for everything possible.
Okay.
And sometimes we can even get insurance to pay for all of it. But in those cases where they don't, and where you still can't quite figure out how to come up with that much money up front, we have financing options, which are incredible, from 0% to whatever really fits your budget.
I mean, you
lifestyle.
have to have decent credit. I mean, your company is not carrying itself, but
Right.
But are people financing it? It's very common.
Absolutely. We do that every single week. And in fact, for some people, it makes more sense to do more of a leasing option, which is why we've come up with our Here for Life program, which means that every 3 years, as technology continues to improve, you get the latest and greatest hearing aids, and you just keep your same flat monthly payment.
That's nice.
Yeah, a little bit like having just another cell phone bill, but now it's for your hearing, and you always stay up to date and current.
The hearing aids themselves, are they becoming smaller and smaller?
Absolutely.
Like hidden?
So we have some hearing aids that are considered invisible. My very favorites are just a little thing that sits on top of your ear with a wire that comes down. But for an awful lot of my patients, we can custom build something that sits way down inside your canal and nobody ever sees it. In fact, I have looked in an ear sometimes. The patient comes in and I'll just check to make sure their ears are clear. And there's a hearing aid. Didn't even notice it and they walked in. And I'm a hearing aid guy. Didn't even know it was there.
So the hearing aid's smaller and smaller. So if you're worried about everybody noticing your hearing aids, making you look old.
Yes.
Because what makes you look old is you can't hear conversations. I mean, it's noticeable when people can't hear.
Look, I've got a hearing aid on right now, and you probably haven't even noticed.
Was that right?
Yeah. But
Okay.
what really is noticeable...
Because you need it, or you were doing it for the interview?
Just to show you in the interview.
Okay.
But what's more noticeable, that or somebody going, what? Say that again? Huh?
I could spot it even with servers at restaurants. They're leaning in.
Absolutely. Hey, that is noticeable. People pick up on it, and they realize, you're not doing as well as you should. You laughed at a wrong time. That's noticeable. This is not noticeable.
So we are out of time, but we have about a minute left. At what point should somebody get a hearing aid or look into it?
So there's an old Japanese proverb that says, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And with hearing loss, that's no different. You want to get taken care of immediately. And so if you're turning the TV up, or if you feel like people just mumble more than they used to, they don't know how to talk anymore, or if you currently wear hearing aids and you're just not getting the performance out of them that you need, now is the time to call. Give us a call, let us do the exam at no cost, and try these hearing aids completely risk-free, and let's change your life.
You have a great quote from Helen Keller.
Right.
That you told me.
Helen Keller said, when you lose your vision, you lose contact with things. But when you lose your hearing, you lose contact with people. And we want to restore that contact the best way that we know how, which is why we invite everybody. Give us a call right now. Let's examine your hearing and take the challenge. Change your life forever.
And the challenge is come in,
Yep.
get fitted for hearing aids, try them out for a little while. If you
Completely
don't like them, you get
risk-free.
your money back.
Absolutely.
And very few people probably go back to not being able to hear again.
There are very few. I mean, occasionally we find somebody, but for the most part, and that's why we do such extensive testing, we get it right almost all the time.
Okay, so for people that have heard what you had to say and they want to get started or find out more, what's the best place to learn more?
Give us a call or go to our website, myhearingcenters.com, and you'll find a location near you, and we'll be able to start your progress towards better hearing.
All right, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
You've been watching the Wellness Hour, news that makes you healthier. For now, I wish you good health.
Thanks for watching the Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news with your host, Randy Alvarez, the authority on health issues.